Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of The Chrysalis Effect. I am Monique White, your host, and here in The Chrysalis Effect, we are transforming mind, money, and manifestations. And we are going to continue on this week on the last topic in the series of letting go. We are talking about letting go of things that do not serve us in this new year, 2022. And today we're going to wrap up with our last topic. But before I go any further, I want to encourage you to like, share, subscribe, and hit that little notification button so you can be notified when I upload another episode. Thank you so much in advance. Well, I am excited to bring you this last topic. Today we are going to be talking about shame. Shame. We are going to be wrapping up the series of letting go, talking about shame. Shame is that feeling of humiliation or disgrace or dishonor. It's the feeling of being unworthy or being inferior. You feel bad about who you are or about something that you did. You're embarrassed. And frankly, it's a miserable feeling. It makes you feel self-conscious and it causes you to withdraw. Now, have you ever felt that way? Can anybody out there relate? Because I will wager that all of us have felt ashamed at some time in our lives. Yeah, I know there's going to be a couple of you out there who are just so perfect that you have never done anything to be ashamed of. Or you're just so saved that this doesn't apply to you. But for my real folks, for the honest folks, we have all been there. And, in the beginning, it's a normal response. And not just in the beginning, I misspoke. It is a normal response. It serves a function. When you have done something wrong or hurt someone, shame has its place. It serves a mental, moral, and social function. It teaches us boundaries of what is acceptable and unacceptable. It fosters humility. It's an emotion that pushes us to do better the next time. Think about that young child that was caught sneaking cookies with his hand in the cookie jar, so to speak. The child feels ashamed. He learns that what he did is not acceptable, and he adapts his behavior. Shame served a positive function in that sense. It arises out of cultural norms, religious tenets. It's a very personal experience. Now, there is a negative side to it also. It also arises out of external forces, where external forces are the root, where something has been done to us or said to us to cause us to experience shame, such as trauma or abuse. And there are two ways to handle that. And the professional way we say is adaptive and maladaptive. But in short, the problem arises when we fail to fully process and adapt in a positive way, when we can't move on. The problem arises when it oppresses us and we approach life and all our experiences through that filter of shame. If it arises out of something that you have done or said, you apologized and atoned, yet you still can't let it go. Yet you still have that feeling of shame, of unworthiness. Or someone else is holding it over you and causing you to feel ashamed for it. And the reaction to that is what? The reaction to that is to protect yourself, right? It's to withdraw, to hide. So now we've got an antisocial response. Rather than serving that social function, now you're on the opposite side of that. It is taking your power away. You're avoiding things. You're dealing with things through that shame. You have adapted in a negative way. And when that occurs, it has the same mental, physical, emotional effects as anger. And actually, it really is similar to anger. However, anger is really focused on the behavior. Shame is focused on the person. It's focused within. It's really a personal level. And that's when it doesn't serve you. Because then shame fosters self-sabotaging behaviors. Because you're coming at things from a place of unworthiness, of a place of hopelessness, of loss of control, of powerlessness. I'll give you an example. If you feel unworthy of getting that big contract or passing that test, you might fail to prepare for a pitch or a big meeting, or fail to study. If you feel that you are unworthy of achieving that gold medal for your sport because unconsciously you have accepted failure, you might put off practicing. You see where I'm going with this? So that shame that once served as a social, moral, mental function of boundaries of what is acceptable and unacceptable, fostering humility, pushing you to do better the next time, is actually pushing you to do the opposite the next time. So what is the solution? What is the solution? Because the Bible tells us that there's no shame nor condemnation in Jesus Christ. It says, for the scripture says, everyone who believes in him will not be put to shame in Romans. 1 Peter 2:6 says the same thing. Whoever believes in him shall not be put to shame. So I look at it this way. If the King of Kings, if the Almighty, the Creator, the beginner and finisher of our faith, doesn't hold shame over us when he has more than a justification to, then how dare we continue to operate under a veil of shame? Because when God forgives us, we ask his forgiveness. He accepts our apology. He gives us his forgiveness. As far as he's concerned, it's over. It's done. That's not to say, don't get me wrong, that you won't have to deal with the consequences of XYZ in this natural world. But as far as God is concerned, it's gone. He doesn't bring it up again. The only time it comes up again is if we continue to bring it up. Now, if Jesus is our example, God is in him and Jesus is in God. If Jesus is our example by which we should live, shouldn't we follow that example? Shouldn't we follow that example? If once he forgives us, it's gone, and that's the example, then once we've asked for forgiveness and we accepted it, then that's it. That's it. Release yourself from that bondage. It's over. It's gone. Give yourself the gift of peace of mind and give yourself the freedom of self-control and take back your power. So the first step is forgiveness. Forgive. What does that word mean? It means to stop being angry or resentful for something or some action. It is a verb, and it's an intentional act to change the feeling and the attitude about something or someone. I said intentional. Make note of that word. Intentional. It is a decision. Forgive also means to cancel. Think about loan forgiveness, to cancel a debt. Again, cancel is a verb. It's an action word. When something is canceled, it is no more. Its impact, its effect is nullified. So forgive yourself for whatever it is that you have been lording over yourself or holding over yourself all these years. Forgive yourself in 2022. Give yourself back that peace of mind, that freedom of self-control. The second step is mindfulness. Be aware of the root. Be aware of where it's coming from. Be aware when you start to feel this way. Make a practice of setting aside time to practice mindfulness. To be still, to be silent, to be fully present within yourself. Recognize what's going on in you, so you can recognize when it happens. And when it arises, be cognizant of your self-speech. How you treat yourself. How you talk to yourself. What is your self-talk? Love on yourself some. Love on yourself some. Be aware of what you're telling yourself. Is what you're telling yourself true? Is it fact or fiction? Is there some evidence to support it, or is there evidence to the contrary? Change your self-talk. Give yourself grace. Understand that if this is something that you struggle with, that there is no magic wand to take it away. The root for many of us has been a traumatic experience, cultural conditioning, something that has built up over time. Rome was not built in a day. Letting go of shame is a process. One step at a time, you begin to let go of this thing that doesn't serve you. One step at a time, you reverse or alter the way you talk to yourself. One step at a time, you alter the way that you think about and treat yourself. Free yourself by reminding yourself of who and whose you are, that you are fearfully and wonderfully made with all power and authority. I spoke previously, multiple times on the podcast. My first child, I was a teenager when I had my son. And I had just graduated high school. And all of my peers went on. I had a scholarship to a college out in Western Pennsylvania. I chose to stay home. I moved in with my son's father, to the chagrin of my parents and the church. And I broke a social, family norm, social norm, religious norm, because I was unmarried. So I had this shame of A, being pregnant, B, being unmarried, C, not going to college, and being stuck at home while all my peers advanced. And so what did I do? I withdrew. I didn't want to be around people. When my friends came home on break with all their stories of all, their college experiences, I already felt bad because everybody else left and I was still at home. I already felt less than, and then they're coming home and I didn't have those same experiences. I was missing out. So I was ashamed. I went to church and I saw those side eyes and the whispers and people that didn't whisper. So that became my identity. And I didn't expect much from myself because, frankly, no one expected much from me either. I was operating under that veil of shame. My viewpoint for my possibilities and opportunities in life was narrowed by that veil of shame. And it wasn't until I realized that my bad decisions didn't define me, that my past failures didn't define me, and that it didn't end with those. And it wasn't until I realized who and whose I was and my potential, and that I alone had the power to shape and craft my destiny. It wasn't until I broke free of all that things started to change. But as long as I stayed in that place, as long as I continued to let others lord over me, and as long as I continued to operate underneath the weight of shame, I couldn't move forward. I was immobile. But let me tell you this, it didn't happen all at once though. It was a process for me to realize that. And it began with forgiving myself. Realizing that my decisions, my past failures, my situation didn't define me. It was making that decision, and decision again, action word. I made the intentional determination that things were going to change. And then lastly, therapy. I am a big proponent of therapy. Therapy never hurt anybody. You might have to go through a couple therapists to find one that is in alignment with you. But everybody needs someone to talk to every once in a while. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no shame in it. It doesn't make you less of a person to see a therapist. And some of these things, especially if it arises out of trauma or abuse, the therapist might be your second stop after forgiveness. And if you aren't to the forgiveness phase, it should be your first stop. Therapy. Letting go of that which doesn't serve us. There is no shame nor condemnation in Jesus Christ. And I dare say that you will not be able to transform your mind. Well, you might not be able to transform your money or your manifestation until you transform your mind and let go of shame. Thank you everyone for joining me today. I am Monique White of Triumph Services, your transformation coach, and this has been the Chrysalis Effect, where we are transforming mind, money, and manifestation. If you would like to connect with me, you can do so on all my social media channels at Triumph SVCS. Again, that is at Triumph SVCS. When you can book a connection call with me, a discovery session, by going to the link that is in the description box below. Have a great weekend, everyone, and I will see you right back here next week. Bye-bye now.